Aliens guffawed as Earth's diplomats begged for a council seat. But their arrogant laughter transformed to fearful silence as humanity unveiled the titanic nexus, a marvel that dwarfed any known megastructure. Jeffrey King strode through the opulent corridors of the colossal Galactic Council headquarters on Zephyrus Prime. Polished statues of the revered founders towered overhead. Jeffrey's blue-scaled alien counterpart, Kaid, sniggered that the Council found humans joining laughable, given their primitive tech. "My colleagues will get quite the chuckle from your membership request, Mr. King. No interstellar travel, and you want a seat at our table?" Kaid taunted. Jeffrey swallowed his surging irritation and flashed a calm smile as they entered the immense circular council chamber. Hundreds of alien delegates sneered from their tiered seats as he approached the center-speaking podium. The massive, tentacled council speaker Zorgath boomed for silence. Hushed snickers persisted as Jeffrey commenced his address. He outlined humanity's achievements and humble aspirations. Muffled alien chortles interrupted. Reaching his final remarks, Jeffrey halted and grinned. From his breast pocket, he withdrew a small crystalline device and held it aloft. Rotund gasps and hisses resounded. Jeffrey revealed the device was but a miniature replica of the authentic Nexus, a clandestine human megastructure veiled in Sol's asteroid belt. He depressed a control. A gargantuan hologram materialized, portraying a mammoth spherical structure laced with pulsating power conduits and slowly gyrating segments. He divulged that this engineering marvel, shielded from alien eyes for decades, exemplified humanity's genuine capabilities. Frantic murmurs and astonished wheezings swelled. The balance of galactic power had dramatically shifted. But this unveiling was not without immense risk. Humanity now found itself in a perilous position, with the desperate need to demonstrate their true strength and secure their council seat, lest the angry and fearful alien races unite to wipe the potential threat of Earth from the stars forever. The cacophony of voices reached a fever pitch as hundreds of alien delegates leapt to their feet, shouting and gesticulating wildly. Amidst the chaos, Jeffrey King stood tall and unmoving at the podium, his steely gaze fixed on Kaid. The Talaxian diplomat's blue scales had paled to a sickly grey, his earlier smugness replaced by a mixture of shock and outrage. "What is the meaning of this, King?" Kaid demanded, his voice shaking. "What exactly is this Nexus capable of?" Jeffrey's lips curled into a thin smile. "The Nexus is humanity's greatest achievement, Kaid. It's a self-sustaining megastructure that can house millions of our people, generate vast amounts of energy, and produce all the resources we need to thrive. It's our insurance policy against any threat the galaxy might throw at us." Kaid's eyes narrowed. "And why did you feel the need to keep such a project hidden from the galactic community?" Jeffrey's expression hardened, his voice taking on a sharp edge. "Because we've seen how this community treats its weaker members. We've watched Talaxian corporations strip our colonies bare, leaving our people destitute and dependent on your aid. We've seen Zorgath warlords raid our settlements and abduct our people for their twisted games. Humanity will no longer be at the mercy of alien powers. The Nexus is a symbol of our determination to forge our own path." As Jeffrey's words echoed through the chamber, a heavy silence descended upon the delegates. Kaid, his face contorted with barely contained rage, slammed his fist on the table. "This is an outrage. You cannot keep such a structure secret from the Council. You will surrender the plans for the Nexus immediately for inspection." Jeffrey merely shook his head, a cold smile playing on his lips as he stepped down from the podium. As he passed Kaid, he leaned in close, his voice a whisper. "You've underestimated us for the last time." With that, Jeffrey strode out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence he left behind. The moment the doors closed behind him, the council erupted into a frenzy of activity. Delegates shouted and argued, their voices rising in a discordant chorus as they struggled to make sense of this new development. Amidst the chaos, Kaid slipped out of the chamber, his mind racing. He made his way to a private communication room and hastily contacted his superiors on Talax Prime. As he relayed the shocking news of humanity's secret megastructure, He could sense the alarm in their voices. The Talaxian leadership, long accustomed to their dominance in the galaxy, now found themselves faced with a potential threat they had never anticipated. As the call ended, Cade leaned back in his chair, his thoughts churning. He knew that his people would not take this revelation lying down. Even now, they were likely beginning to plan their response, marshalling their resources and allies to deal with this new challenge to their power. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and humanity had just made its most daring move yet. Weeks had passed since Jeffrey's revelation at the Galactic Council headquarters. He stood in the command center of the Nexus, surrounded by a bustling team of engineers and scientists. They were making the final preparations for the grand unveiling of the Megastructure to the human population. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Suddenly, an urgent beeping from the communications console caught Jeffrey's attention. He rushed over to the station, where a young technician was frantically decoding an intercepted message. "Sir, it's from Talax Prime," the technician said, his voice trembling. "They're planning to attack the Nexus before we can fully activate it." Jeffrey's face grew grim as he read the decoded message. The Talaxians had discovered the location of the Nexus and were assembling a fleet to destroy it. They couldn't risk humanity having such a powerful asset. Without hesitation, Jeffrey ordered his team to send a warning to Earth's defenses. "We need to prepare for an imminent attack," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The Nexus hummed to life, its massive energy conduits pulsing with power as the human crew worked to bring all systems online. The entire structure seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. Just as the final preparations were being made, alarms blared throughout the command center. "Talaxian ships detected at the edge of the solar system," a sensor operator shouted. On the main view screen, a fleet of sleek angular Talaxian warships dropped out of hyperspace. Their hulls glinted in the distant sunlight, each one bristling with advanced weaponry. They began to move towards the Nexus, their intentions clear. Jeffrey and his team watched the approaching fleet on their monitors, tension filling the room like a tangible force. Suddenly, the Nexus shuddered violently as a series of massive explosions erupted across its surface. Shockwaves rippled through the megastructure, sending people and equipment tumbling. Jeffrey braced himself against a console, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They've planted bombs inside the Nexus," he shouted over the chaos. "They must have used stealth technology to infiltrate our defenses." As more explosions rocked the Nexus, alarms blared and systems began to fail. Jeffrey barked orders to his team, desperately trying to contain the damage and keep the megastructure from falling apart. Outside, the Talaxian fleet opened fire, their weapons tearing through the weakened defenses of the Nexus. Explosions blossomed across the surface of the megastructure, debris spinning off into space. In the midst of the chaos, a small group of human fighters launched from hidden hangar bays within the Nexus. Led by Jeffrey's former squadmate and best friend, Captain Marcus Roscoe, the fighters engaged the Talaxian fleet in a desperate bid to buy time for the Nexus to recover. Jeffrey and his team worked frantically to repair the damaged systems, sweat pouring down their faces as they raced against time. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. Slowly, the Nexus began to come back online, its energy conduits flickering to life one by one. Jeffrey watched the battle unfold on the monitors, his heart pounding as Marcus's fighter weaved through the Talaxian ships, drawing their fire away from the Nexus. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, the Nexus's main weapon, a massive particle beam cannon, finally powered up. Its barrel glowed with an eerie blue light, thrumming with barely contained energy. Jeffrey's hand hovered over the firing control, hesitation gripping him. He knew that using such a weapon would forever change the course of human history. With a deep breath, he pressed the button. The particle beam lanced out from the Nexus, cutting through the Talaxian fleet like a hot knife through butter. Alien ships shattered and burned, their hulls crumbling under the onslaught. The human fighters cheered in triumph as the Talaxian vessels began to drift lifelessly through the void. But even as the immediate threat passed, Jeffrey knew this was only the beginning. The automated systems of the Nexus worked to seal breaches and restore functionality, but the scars of battle remained. As he surveyed the damage, Jeffrey couldn't help but wonder what new challenges and threats would emerge from the deeps of space, now that the galaxy knew the true power of the human race. In the days following the attack, the Nexus buzzed with frantic activity as repair crews worked around the clock to mend the battered megastructure. Sparks flew from severed power conduits, and the air reeked of ozone as technicians welded torn hull plates. Amidst the chaos, Jeffrey pored over the mysterious message with his top analysts, determined to unravel its secrets. Lines of alien code danced across the command center's main display as decryption algorithms chewed through the transmission. Jeffrey drummed his fingers on the console, impatient for answers. Finally, a name flashed on screen. Zoran, a high-ranking Talaxian diplomat, critical of his government's belligerence. Intrigued, Jeffrey arranged a covert rendezvous on a desolate world far from prying eyes. As his ship knifed through the planet's thin atmosphere, he couldn't shake the prickling sensation of unseen observers tracking his descent. The barren landscape stretched out before him, twin moons casting an eerie glow across the rocky terrain. Jeffrey's boots crunched on loose gravel as he approached the meeting site, one hand poised over his holstered plasma pistol. A figure materialized from the shadows, Zoran, his iridescent scales shimmering in the moonlight. The Talaxian's eyes darted nervously as he motioned Jeffrey closer. In hushed tones, Zoran revealed the Nexus attack was merely a prelude to a grander scheme. Krazax, a ruthless Talaxian warlord, had discovered an ancient alien armada hidden in the galaxy's uncharted depths. With this devastating firepower, Krazax aimed to subjugate not only Earth but the entire galactic community. Reeling from the implications, Jeffrey demanded to know Zoran's motives. Pain clouded the diplomat's eyes as he recounted the horrors Krazax inflicted in his lust for power. Entire civilizations crushed beneath his armored heel. Only an alliance between humanity and Talaxian moderates could hope to stop the impending catastrophe. As Jeffrey and Zoran hammered out the framework of their desperate plan, the screech of ion engines shattered the night. Talaxian fighters swooped from the clouds, disruptor cannons spitting streams of superheated plasma. Cursing the betrayal, Jeffrey and Zoran sprinted for the waiting ship, searing bolts of energy churning the earth around them. They lunged through the airlock an instant before the fighters unleashed a salvo. The deck lurched violently as Jeffrey activated the emergency thrusters, the vessel clawing for the safety of open space. Sirens wailed, and warning lights flashed as the ship's shields strained under the onslaught. Jeffrey's fingers danced over the comms panel, firing off an encrypted data burst to the Nexus, a dire warning of the looming peril. Humanity needed to mobilize rapidly against this existential threat, but Jeffrey knew they couldn't triumph alone. The galaxy's fate now hinged on an unlikely partnership between erstwhile adversaries. As Jeffrey and Zoran hurtled through the stars, long-range sensors shrieked in alarm. A massive energy signature blossomed on the scanners, dwarfing anything on record, the unmistakable herald of Krazax's doomsday fleet. The final battle for the galaxy's soul lay just over the horizon, and trillions of lives hung in the balance. As Jeffrey and Zoran's ship hurtled through hyperspace, the comm panel suddenly crackled to life. Marcus Roscoe's haggard face filled the screen, his eyes bloodshot and his brows slick with sweat. Jeffrey, the Talaxians have launched a full-scale assault on Earth. Our defenses are holding for now, but we're badly outnumbered. Krazax's warships are tearing through our lines like tissue paper. Jeffrey's heart sank as the realization dawned on him. The attack on the Nexus had been a ruse, a cunning diversion to draw Earth's attention away from the real danger. Krazax had played them all for fools. Zoran's scales rippled with anger as he spoke. Krazax's treachery knows no bounds. We must make haste to the Nexus and mount a counterattack before it's too late. As their ship docked with the Nexus, Jeffrey and Zoran were greeted by a council of grim-faced human leaders. The room buzzed with tension as they pored over tactical displays, desperate to find a way to turn the tide of the battle raging above Earth. Jeffrey slammed his fist on the table, his voice cutting through the din. "We have to use the Nexus's particle beam cannon. It's our only chance to even the odds against Krazax's fleet." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room as the council members nodded their assent. The Nexus hummed with power as its mighty weapon began to charge, the very fabric of space warping around the megastructure. Suddenly Zoran's comm device chimed. His eyes widened as he read the incoming message. "The Talaxian moderates have staged a coup on Talax Prime. They're denouncing Krazax as a tyrant and calling for an end to the war." Jeffrey's heart soared with renewed hope. "Broadcast that message to the Talaxian fleet. Let's sow some chaos in their ranks." As the news of the coup spread like wildfire through the Talaxian ships, confusion and discord erupted among the enemy forces. Some vessels began to break formation, unsure of where their loyalties lay. Seizing the moment, Jeffrey gave the order to fire. The Nexus's particle beam lanced out into space, a blinding lance of pure energy that cut through the Talaxian fleet like a scythe through wheat. Explosions blossomed in the void as enemy ships were reduced to molten slag. The tide of battle began to turn as more and more Talaxian vessels surrendered or defected to the human side. But Krazax, his eyes wild with rage, refused to accept defeat. With a roar of fury, he led a desperate boarding action onto the Nexus, determined to seize control of the megastructure and turn its power against the humans. Jeffrey and Zoran, flanked by a hand-picked team of elite soldiers, raced through the Nexus's corridors to meet the threat head-on. The air crackled with the sizzle of plasma fire and the screams of the dying as the two forces clashed in brutal close-quarters combat. At the heart of the Nexus, on the command deck, Jeffrey and Krazax faced each other in a final, fateful confrontation. The Talaxian warlord was a formidable opponent, his every blow fueled by a lifetime of battle and conquest. But Jeffrey, driven by the weight of Earth's fate on his shoulders, fought with a skill and ferocity that even Krazax could not match. In a desperate lunge, Jeffrey drove his plasma blade through the warlord's chest, the searing heat of the weapon burning through flesh and bone. As Krazax's lifeless body crumpled to the deck, a stunned silence fell over the Nexus. The remaining Talaxian forces, their leader vanquished, laid down their arms in surrender. The battle was won, but at a terrible cost. In the days that followed, an uneasy peace settled over the galaxy. Earth and Talax Prime, both scarred by the ravages of war, began the slow process of rebuilding. Jeffrey, though hailed as a hero by both humans and Talaxians, could find no solace in the accolades heaped upon him. In a quiet moment, Zoran pulled Jeffrey aside, his voice heavy with concern. "I fear that the true danger to the galaxy still lurks in the shadows. The ancient technology that Krazax sought to control may hold secrets more terrifying than any weapon we've ever known." Jeffrey stared out at the stars from the Nexus's observation deck, a chill running down his spine. The Talaxian war may have been won, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger and more terrifying conflict. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.